Hello and welcome to another program by the Assyrian Wellness Collaborative. My name is Carmen Morad. The Assyrian Wellness Collaborative is in partnership with the Stanislaus County Behavioral Health Recovery Services Prevention and Early Intervention. Today's conversation will be about the refugee journey. I am delighted to be joined by two professionals very familiar with this conversation. Katharina Bieler from the International Rescue Committee from the Turlock office, and Dina Malik Moreno, licensed clinical social worker with private practice here in Turlock. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Katharina, I would like to begin with you. You and I have collaborated on a couple of projects with the Assyrian American Civic Club, and we both are active in Stanislaus County. I would like to begin, first of all, by thanking you for what you do, because I believe any International Rescue Committee staff and the humanitarian work that you do needs to be commended. You help those who have sought refuge, those who have come to this country, come to our communities to fight for a better life, for better opportunities. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Carmen. And yeah, it's been great to also collaborate with you in the great work the Assyrian Wellness Collaborative has done. So thank you for having me here today.
Absolutely. The pleasure is mine. Katharina, let's begin with this. You know, the premise of today's program, as I mentioned in the beginning, is the refugee journey and the journey through mental and behavioral health wellness. And as we discuss today, and we will hear from two wonderful, wonderful members of our refugee community, their testimony of their struggle, hope, gratitude, and resiliency. Those are four words that I believe will really resonate with everyone who has been through this experience. The experience of immigration, being a refugee, the acculturation into our community. So let me begin by asking a few questions to inform and educate our viewers, Katharina. Tell us briefly about what IRC does and how are refugees resettled into our communities?
Yeah, thank you. So IRC in the United States is a refugee resettlement non-government organization, NGO, and IRC is global and we do humanitarian work globally. But yes, within the US, we do refugee resettlement. And so at our Turlock and Modesto office here in the Central Valley, we resettle people who are fleeing war, violence, persecution, and we people who have refugee status, people who have special immigrant visa, and people who are also have their asylum status as well. And so when and now those three different statuses that people have, they do vary in how people get to the United States, but we are going to focus on refugee resettlement. So one of the big things that people do when they have fled their country or they're internally displaced within their country is they sign up with the UN. They find a United Nations refugee either office, and usually what happens is the UNHCR will go to where displacement has happened. And so people will sign up that they want to be refugees and that they want to live elsewhere. And so one of the things that will happen then is people need to be vetted. And it is not just a quick process. People can take years upon years. And we've heard of stories of people waiting 8 years to be able to be resettled in the United States. And so once people get the okayed that they are going to get resettled, the UN will let the ORR in the federal government, the Office of Refugee Resettlement, know that, and they agree upon then people coming. And we have 9 resettlement agencies within the United States. International Rescue Committee, IRC, is one of the 9. And so then that is sent to our headquarters, and then our headquarters will then see which office that people will go to. And oftentimes people will be resettled somewhere where they either already have family or friends, or where they already have a community base there. And so we have been in refugee resettlement with people who are Assyrian coming from Iran and Iraq. We are resettling people from Latin America, especially Mexico, Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador, and people from Syria, Afghanistan, as well as people from other countries such as the Ukraine, Eritrea, and many other places. And so when people then resettle into our office, the first 90 days, they're in reception and placement, or what we call R&P. And in that, this is where we welcome people from the airport, or they take a bus to get to the Central Valley. We help them find housing. And right now, as we also have many people who have also come under the Afghan humanitarian parolee status, we are in a housing crisis. We do help people in hotels until we find housing for them. And then we help people get enrolled into school. We help people get enrolled into benefits, into health insurance. They have to begin as refugees to get an assessment at public health, as we have a partnership with the county public health. And so they get their refugee assessments done. And then we have many services on top of that, which is wonderful that we're able to provide, and we have been growing our services. So we do have a grant with the county for employment. So people, we help people get employed somewhere, and we also provide English classes. We have an immigration department, which helps people get their green cards, help people get citizenship, as well as travel documents, and a whole bunch of other things that immigration does in their department. And we have a wonderful program called Afghan Path to Wellness, Aptw, and this is providing mental wellness classes for Afghan women. And we also now have financial capabilities. We have working with people who are survivors of human trafficking. We are doing COVID testing, vaccinations, clinics, which is my position, which is what I do at IRC. And we also now have asthma mitigation. And we are growing, and we're actually currently hiring for more people for mental health and wellness. So we are trying to come alongside people as much as we can in many different departments, but also to have a more holistic approach as we come alongside people who are our new neighbors in our area. That's a brief.
Katharina, thank you. That was a beautiful summation. I know there's so much detail involved in all the programs that you said. And, um, you know, it is such a wonderful safety net to have for someone who comes into a new country, someone who comes into a country where they don't speak the language, they don't know where to go, what services, what resources are there. And as you said in the beginning of when you started to speak about the vetting process, it's very important that the community at large know that refugees are not undocumented immigrants or individuals. You said as long as 8 years, there are people that wait to be resettled in the United States. So it's very important for anyone that comes in contact with refugees to know that they are the most processed and vetted individuals that come into this country. Is that an accurate statement to make?
Yeah, that definitely is true. And in the last administration, many of we were supposed to resettle 110,000 people, and that we saw in the news that got cut back severely. And so not only were people ready to come in 2017 who suddenly weren't able to come, not only have some of them waited 8 years, but now they've waited an additional 4 years, 4 to 5 years. So it's not a quick process by any means.
Mm. This also includes family reunification because there are family members that perhaps didn't get to arrive at the same time. And I have helped through the Congressman's office through so many families that are separated. And, you know, 9, 10 years is a long time not to see a family member. It really is devastating. So, thank you for all that you do in your offices because I do know that refugees who go through the immigration process, get their green card, become citizens, they are able to apply and bring other family members. So that really is something that um, a lot of refugees have told me that they look forward to. I often get asked that in today's world, with such inflation, we're living through a pandemic, and there's already enough people that are struggling in this country. It's really important to take a step back and reflect and talk about who actually organized and started IRC.
In as many people know, Albert Einstein, and sometimes people don't know, he was a refugee himself. Mm-hmm. And so it was on the bequest of Albert Einstein for countries and for groups of people to come together to assist people who are fleeing. So IRC had a different name back then, but it started in July of 1933 already, where there was a huge convention of people who came together to talk about how they're going to come alongside people who, as we now use the word refugee. And so it went through a few name changes, but we are today International Rescue Committee, and we're very proud to have been started by the bequest of Albert Einstein, a very famous man and a man who cared deeply about others.
So, you've heard all about the great work the IRC does here in the US, right? We know, it's a lot to take in. So let's quickly review. We help resettle refugees who have fled war and persecution. We greet them at the airport and set them up with a furnished apartment stocked with healthy foods. We help them see doctors and psychologists if they need to, learn English, find jobs, start small businesses, and grow in their careers, become citizens, buy a home, and build better lives for their children. Sounds awesome, right? But you probably want to know, how can I help? Well, the easiest and most impactful way is to donate on rescue.org. Select the Where We Work tab, pick your country and city, then click on the Donate button. Donate once or become a monthly supporter. Either way, your gift ensures that we have the money to do all of this amazing work. But if donating money is just not your style, how about putting the fun back in fundraising? Turn your birthday or some random afternoon into a fundraising effort using CrowdRise. Here, you can use your creativity to raise money for great causes like the IRC. To learn how, just go to crowdrise.com/International Rescue Committee and select a city chapter from the drop-down menu. DIY not for you? Then how about donating welcome baskets? These essentials are truly welcome gifts. They're baskets for the kitchen, the bathroom, for cleaning, and general household baskets. The more kits we get, the more families we can help. You could also donate storage space. After all, we do need some place to put all of those kits. However, check with your local office first before you sign a contract. But maybe the news has you all riled up. Then why not become an advocate? It can be as simple as responding to a Take Action alert on our website, rescue.org. Sign an online petition or call or write to your members of Congress about an issue you care about. Remember, support can take many forms. Simply becoming a regular at a business owned by a refugee is a great way to show support. Or if you yourself are a small business owner, why not hire a refugee? Your voice matters, so spread the word. You can also contribute your time by becoming a volunteer. The IRC has offices all across the United States, each offering a variety of volunteer opportunities for both individuals and groups. For example, you could mentor a refugee or refugee family, or help them prepare for their first job. Got a green thumb? How about helping out with a New Roots garden? To be a volunteer, you've got to be in it to win it. Some programs require a significant time commitment. But if you're up for it, here's what to do. First, see what's available at rescue.org/volunteer. Next, you'll attend an orientation at an IRC office and fill out an application. Then you'll have a short interview with an IRC staff member and will be asked to go through a background check. Once you're clear, you're on your way to being an IRC volunteer. We hope this video has been useful, and we look forward to hearing from you. For more information, go to rescue.org and click on How to Help. Thank you.
And the reason I wanted to have you talk about that is because look at the contributions that refugees who have come to this country, who were able to have opportunities to be educated, whether it was health and science, engineering, medicine, and really contribute and give back. So it really is important to reflect upon that as well. And one of the reasons that I really wanted us to have this more understanding of the refugee journey is the fact that their journey includes struggle in the beginning. We will be hearing from two individuals who are very open about their story, about, where they came from, why they had to leave, why they had to leave everything they knew behind, their homeland, their friends, relatives, their way of life, to come to this country. And then to have the help and support of not just IRC, but also our county's social services, our county's health department, health service agency, and the importance of other community members, volunteers, people who give back, people who tutor English, for example, people who volunteer or they open their homes and their businesses to hire these refugees who really are soaking every opportunity. But unfortunately, as we come in contact with many of our refugees, they have been through certain struggles that really need to be addressed. The refugee struggle in itself can be traumatic, but add to that the struggles of war and conflict, persecution, as you mentioned earlier in your statement. And we also know in our school districts, we know that there are certain behavior issues, or as we call them, post-traumatic stress, that are exasperated, especially now during the pandemic, or there are certain situations that bring that out. And I would like to introduce and bring in Dina Malik Moreno now, who is a licensed clinical social worker with a thriving practice here in Turlock. And Dina, you also were a mental health clinician with Stanislaus County through the myriad list of experiences that you have. Tell us what you do and how do you talk about the struggle and the refugees, and knowing that you are a child immigrant yourself.
Thank you. So I have a private practice now, so I mainly see all my clients through there, and I do some collaborations with Assyrian Wellness Collaborative, of course. So what happens with the clients that I see, so it's important to realize that there's children, there's adolescents, there's young adults, mid-age adults, and elderly, and they all have a different experience because they're at a different stage of their life and wisdom and just development in general. So when they first come in, it's important to identify that they have witnessed war, there's generational war, there's a lot of trauma, there's a lot of violence that they have seen, lived in constant fear, chronic fear, anxiety. There's a lot of depression as well, panic attacks with them. And there's also just family genetics too, where they've had it, their parents had it generations before. And, we didn't have mental health awareness in the Middle East, like the things that we do here, Each Mind Matters. And so when they're coming here, they're not aware that they have access to these services. And history has been with the culture that there was a lot of stigma around getting help. And I think a lot of Assyrians, I can speak to a lot of Assyrian clients that I see too. I see Afghanis as well too, and I'm privileged to work with anybody that comes through my door. But, I think that stigma, that wall is definitely, that barrier is being broken down. They're wanting services, they're referring their fellow cousins and relatives and friends to come get services. They're open-minded, they're getting the relief from it. they're able to talk about the struggles, the trauma that they've seen, the prejudice, the discrimination, and I think that hope part comes in with they're in a country where they're being embraced, there's community, and they're not being shamed or made to feel like they're less than. There's a lot of services and opportunity for them to get well, and they really want to know and they want to be informed, and so it's like they have a growth mindset when they come here. It's like this renewed experience. They know that life can be different and better. But going back to the struggle part, what's really difficult is they're oftentimes separated and they haven't seen their mom and dad. They haven't seen their siblings, their aunts, their uncles, their grandparents that they've lived with in a community all their lives. People pass away when they're there. They can't go, pay their respect and say goodbye to them. And they have a lot of false guilt. So they struggle with a lot of things. Even when they come here, they even feel guilty because they have food, they have shelter, they have peace. And so sometimes that's even a struggle for them because they feel bad for, not suffering that they have all their lives. So that's important to know too. Another thing that happens too with the struggle part of it for them is even though they're here, it takes time for them to kind of unplug in their mind that that their thought process is like from when they were in that country. They're very cautious. They're very suspicious. So, Dina, if I come to you, can I still get my driver's license? Can I still get a job? Is this going to affect my citizenship? So they're always so afraid that it's going to be punitive when they talk about what's really going on with them in the inside. And so the hope is definitely from the community outreach, how welcoming and open everybody is to them. The cultural competency piece is huge. Knowing that there's physicians and providers in the community that speak their language, having access to interpreters is super important. And then the gratitude I hear constantly when I work with my clients, constantly. We love America, we love US, because they are so thankful for healthcare, for housing, for being able to walk out of their homes and they're safe and they're not looked down on, they're not being persecuted, they're not being discriminated against or shown prejudice. I mean, they're in every aspect of life, but not like it was what they experienced. And so they're super thankful and they're open-minded and they're like sponges. They want to learn, which is a beautiful thing I've seen, because one of the things that we've done with the Assyrian Wellness Collaborative, which they've done a million beautiful things and amazing things, is when we have our presentations, there's always a line of people that literally stand in line knowing that I'm behavioral health, I'm a clinician, and they all have questions. So to me, that's that resiliency, that hope that they're going to start to overcome their struggles because they're recognizing there's a need and they're not ashamed to ask for it. They're lining up, knowing everybody else sees them. That's huge. And I think that's happened because they're in this space where we made it safe for them to reach out, to ask for help, and there's no shaming. And so the resiliency is the ability to adapt and overcome. And they really have. And some take a little bit longer than the others, but it's the most beautiful thing to watch when you just see them breathe, just know they're going to be okay. It's a great community to work with.
Dina, you have been so instrumental when the Assyrian Wellness Collaborative first came to be. I remember we looked towards your expertise and background when we were writing the bylaws, the mission statement, our objective, which really had to do with building capacity within the Assyrian community to normalize these conversations about behavior health. We know that our main objectives are two things. And as contracted partners with Stanislaus County Behavioral Health and Recovery Service Prevention and Early Intervention, our first main objective is to reduce stigma, to normalize the conversation that we are having today, which is talk about how we feel. And of course, our second major objective is to make sure that members of our community have timely access to care, to have preventative care. And as you mentioned, cultural competency and sensitivity is key. And as you remember, when we used to have one before COVID, we used to have these large meetings where we would invite psychologists and therapists from the one that I really recall that stays with me was from the Hmong community, because there is a large Hmong community close by that are also refugees. And Katharina, I'm sure you can relate to the fact that all the universal signs of what refugees tell us are truly universal. when we talk about everything that Dina just mentioned, we also have worked with Dr. Asher Badal, who is an Assyrian psychologist himself from Iran, and he's written a book as well on the challenges where they are universal. So when we talk about all the wonderful services that there are for our members of our refugees community. And as Dina said, there are children, adolescents, young adults, and seniors. I really want to talk about our seniors because one of our students from the LCW, the Licensed Clinical Social Work, a wonderful program at Stan State, they had approached us because one of the young ladies, her thesis paper was on depression in seniors in the Assyrian community because of the language barrier, the lack of socialization, the lack of being able to communicate with their neighbors and their doctors, and what that meant. And I was so proud of her for doing that because, again, there's fear and shame in talking openly about how we feel. We don't want to let anyone know if we're not feeling okay. And again, Dina, let us know. And I'll go back to Katharina with this because you said that you just got a grant with Stanislaus County, especially with the Afghan women with the Path to Wellness, because we have to start these conversations to make sure those who need care have access to it with the cultural sensitivity and competency, because there are certain things in each culture that have a different meaning. Dina, do you want to share with us? And then we'll go back to Katharina. She'll tell us what that program actually looks like.
So on the cultural competency pieces,
Yes.
yeah. So because like I said, I work with both. So it's very important to know what the lived experience for, let's say, the Assyrian culture has been, for the Afghani culture has been, and for the demographic that you're serving. Super important, and the best way to know is to actually engage them and let them tell you their story. It's very important because anytime you want to develop any kind of a program, you need to know who your audience is and you need to know what their needs are, not assume what their needs are. And they're the ones that know best what they're needing. And the other thing is too, like, so as a provider too, is, educating providers as well. So whenever I have like Afghani females that would come into counseling and I would see them walk in with their male interpreter from their health plans, I'd be like, yeah, this is not going to happen. So I would literally call, because my biller just happens to be, she speaks Farsi, so I would have him step out and I would have her come in and I would have her interpret, because, it's very important for them to know that when these women are making their appointments and they want to speak to their doctors, they need to have a female interpreter. As much as we can't get them their female doctors. The Syrian women too, they're embarrassed as well too, but they can, I think well, no, same thing for them too, because of the country that they came with in the background. So I think that's important to know too as well, who your audience is, what their needs are, because I've had a lot of them say, like, especially if they have medical issues, I call it good old-fashioned social work. I'll call myself and I'll help them right there and then, set appointments, tell them what's going on, because they're embarrassed to say it because their husband is there or it's a male interpreter. These things are very important because it's preventative. Something's going on and something really bad can happen medically or mental health because they want to verbalize, but they're just embarrassed to because that piece isn't recognized.
Also, it's very important for them to realize that whenever they talk to someone, there is a confidentiality, or as HIPAA, as we call it, just like when they see their doctor, their physician. Working with each social worker or each caseworker is protected by that as well. Very important in the cultures that we come from to make sure that we understand that, and so that they open up to us and we can refer them to the appropriate resources as well. Thank you, Dina, for that reference. I think it's super important. Katharina, tell us about the wellness Path to Wellness program. I love that title. I think Path to Wellness is such a wonderful a group of words put together, because wellness, it means different things in different communities. When we put the question to our community, what does wellness look like? It was two questions. And a lot of people had, in our community, it was faith and preservation of the culture. But to some people, wellness can be being financially stable, for example. to some people, wellness means being free to worship their faith as they wish, depending where they come from. So, what does Path to Wellness offer, and what is the objective or the mission statement by IRC?
So first I'll just kind of talk about IRC's our motto in one sense, and you'll see this on our web pages and other places. We say from harm to home. And we really do believe that that is part of refugee resettlement. It is taking people out of these difficult situations that have created harm and hoping that where they're being resettled, it's not harm anymore. It is home. It is a place where they feel safe. And I think creating safe spaces is vital. And so, and as Dina talked about too, confidentiality, I mean, that is just so important whenever we are interacting with our clients, to let them know whatever they share with us, that it is confidential, that we're not going to spread it among the community, amongst colleagues. It's only on a need to know basis. And so the Afghan Path to Wellness, APTW, is a program for women who can have a safe space to talk with one another. And so we have a cohort model. It's 8 weeks where every week women get together on a platform that works for them. So for some people, that's going to be Facebook. For some people, that might be Zoom. But we have found, and by asking the women what's the best platform for them to be able to meet together. And so it is a confidential social media space for that. And it is a safe for them to talk about their struggles, to talk about their needs, and to learn about mental wellness, to learn about their needs and how to take care of themselves, take care of their family. And again, it isn't just about only the person. When we talk about mental health and wellness, again, it's also what can be going on in your family. You're not seeing your family for years because they're in another country waiting to come. Or your family is still experiencing harm in their own country or uncertainty. So it is a safe space for women to come. And I personally have seen women who have gone through this program who have just honestly, they have come out with so much more confidence, with some people have dealt a lot with depression, and I'm not saying that as to diagnose people, but it is, with the trauma and the experiences, being in a brand new culture, not understanding things, and for the language barriers, but also in the US, we're very paper heavy, paperwork for everything. And so to like start a business, for example, might have been easy for someone in their home country, and they were so excited to do that here. But again, we have a lot more steps. And so the APTW has provided a safe space for women to talk openly and to learn. And again, they have an agreement amongst each other that what is shared is not going to be spread among other people. And again, I wanted to share too, building trust with people. That is just so important for us who work at IRC. And anytime you're meeting new people, are you going to be trustworthy, and building those relationships? And for example, I had built a trusted relationship with the family, and they had shared some stuff with me about the wife not having difficulty breastfeeding. And so when I went to an appointment, they had asked, are there any difficulties in breastfeeding? And again, the wife, she did not speak up, and her husband said, no, everything's fine. And then I said, can you please ask in another way? Because they did have an interpreter. And I kind of reminded them, remember what we told me. It's okay to speak up now, to share about that. And I think if I hadn't known them, if I hadn't built a trusted relationship with them where they felt open, but they knew I wasn't going to spread what they were sharing, but I was able to share in a confidential manner something that was happening that needed to be addressed. And so these are the many ways that when we at IRC are coming alongside people, there's just so many different ways to be culturally competent, to provide confidence, to be that trusted person, to especially being that trusted person years down the road, you might get a phone call again from the client and like, hey, it's been a while. I have this question. And sometimes, they will always go to the same person who was their caseworker or the first person they met at IRC because they trust you, because you came alongside them in their hour of need. And so one of the biggest things we too want to see, especially when we're having more mental health programs and all the different programs that we are having at IRC, is from survival to thriving. And to thrive has to be in a holistic manner and approach. And so, yeah, with APTW and all our other programming, we really hope to provide the holisticness of life to come alongside people in these ways. So we're very thankful for the different opportunities that we have been given to come alongside our clients.
Thank you, Katharina. I would like to, in closing, also mention our collaboration at the Assyrian American Civic Club with particularly you. You are a joy to work with, where we did the mobile vaccine clinic for, I believe, 5 or 6 days, where we were able to, along with the Assyrian Wellness Collaborative, Stanislaus County, we were able to really be helpful and contribute back to the community. And I'll never forget how you would actually drive to go pick up your clients and bring them so they could get vaccinated and drive them back. So when it comes to IRC, we're not just talking about services, we're talking about compassion. We're talking about a humanitarian profession. So kudos to you, because I know what IRC does, and I've seen you particularly, Katharina, and the rest of your staff. You really make a change and you affect people's lives. So thank you for all you do. And in closing, I would like to ask you, how can members of the community help if they would like to contribute and be helpful to refugees' families?
Yes, thank you so much. And again, I'm so thankful we were able to collaborate together on a vaccine clinic, 5 vaccine clinics, and people. And as we had different incentives too, there were people like, oh, you guys got to go to the Syrian American Civic Club for their vaccine because they're free masks, and we had free tacos, and people said they felt very safe there and just very warm and welcome. And so Stan County Public Health and with Assyrian Wellness Collaborative, the Assyrian American Civic Club, and IRC, I felt like we were really able to come together to provide not just something that is needed in the community of COVID vaccinations, but again, just a warm, welcoming space where people felt safe. And so again, thank you. That was really great to be able to come together for that. And that does that really does go along with how people can come alongside our clients. It is collaborating. And so if there are groups and organizations that want to collaborate with IRC, again, please reach out to us. And we also always need interns and volunteers. We are growing, and the needs are so great as well. So, donations, even giving information on like, hey, this place is renting, or hey, we have a house that we're actually renting out. Do you guys need that right now? Just asking IRC what the needs are, and because we listen to our clients as to what their needs are.
Katharina, yeah. You mentioned internship, and it's so important. And I want to share this because, our kids, my son was born and raised in Modesto, and he doesn't know about the struggles of, for example, his grandparents, for example, when they came to this country and what they experienced, or others. So, excuse me, he interned at IRC. He was actually part of a team that went to the airport and picked up a family and brought him over. And it was an eye opener. And he really understood what it takes for them to really come in and not really have anything, and then rely on IRC and staff to have housing, to have healthcare, to literally have, culturally competent food and shelter and all of these services. So definitely, I highly recommend for those who would like to have a better understanding and be able to contribute to volunteer, to intern, and perhaps after their education, perhaps find a way on how they can help to improve the lives of refugees. Thank you so much to both of you for joining me today. Dina, I would like you to share the information of the services that can be offered. Without knowing someone, they need therapy. We know there is stigma with therapy, but you and I have talked about normalizing the conversation about wellness, not just the physical being, that we use the term mind, body, and spirit, that there's a connection, that when we don't feel well physically, we go see a doctor. How do we start the conversation about not feeling well and having anxiety and depression? And we know how it can manifest into other behavior issues. How do you start the conversation about that if someone needs to come seek your services?
So let me go back first real quick with, generally speaking, we live in a county that we have so many services for mental health, really, really blessed. So everybody that's coming as a refugee, they all have insurance. So they're all covered for counseling services. We have all the nonprofits for the children and adolescents, Sierra Vista, Center for Human Services, SpareNet. We have clinicians in private practice like myself. They have access to psychiatry. So it's all covered. That's important for them to know. And then when people come through my doors anyway, so my approach is, first and foremost, is you have to make it safe for them, build that rapport with them. They got to be able to trust you, because stigma reduction starts from the second you interact with them and how you talk to them, how you address them, how you look at them. So being very mindful of that, your tone, your affect, all the above. And just, it's all educational. It's all psychoeducational. It's normalizing it. And my favorite line with them is, when your eye hurts, when your tooth hurts, where do you go? You're not embarrassed. And I'll do like, why are you embarrassed to come see me? We're just talking. And because they always say, because we're crazy if we come to talk to someone like you. I'm like, no, not at all. I'm just a safe place that you could talk to about somebody, just like somebody learned about how to examine your eye. I learned about how to help you find out if you have depression, if you have anxiety. And then the conversation just starts naturally, and you kind of go back and forth and you answer their questions. You're not trying to be right. You're just trying to be aware, and you're being an effective listener. And you got to go at their pace, not at yours. So it has to be that.
Thank you. Thank you for, again, bringing it all together where it makes sense. And that's what counseling is meant to do. And that's what all the resources, we truly are very blessed to live in a county. Stanislaus County really pays attention to the well-being of every resident, whether they are refugees, whether they are born and raised in this county. We really have a wonderful adult day care system where there are so many departments and resources and collaboratives, and the Assyrian Wellness Collaborative came to be. So we are able to have these conversations within our own community. We do outreach, we also do inreach. And these programs are designed to reach individuals who might think that, stigma reduction, what does that mean? Talking about behavior health, what does that mean? What does that look like? So thank you to both of you for sharing what you do. Thank you for highlighting the things that we need to know. And I hope our viewers understand the refugee journey to wellness, the struggle, the hope, the resiliency, and most importantly, gratitude. I do believe that when we hear from our two refugees who share their stories that are really so touching and empowering, I think we will come a little bit closer to understanding on how important it is to help one another and to make sure that we are that hand up to people, to make sure that we learn from them as they are learning to become new residents and our new neighbors. Thank you again for joining me, both of you.
Thank you for having us, and thank you for all you do.
Thank you. I appreciate it because we are learning from each other. And as we have conversations, I know we are inspiring and motivating others to become, for example, what Katharina does, or to do what you do, Dina, which is really improve the mental health and well-being of individuals, because this is something new in our community, in the Assyrian community. We have such stigma around mental health and behavior health, and I do believe programs like this are making strides.
We're definitely breaking the barriers for sure.
We have a lot of work to do, but there's always more work to do. There's improvement to make. But I would like to, in closing, thank you, Katharina, for all you do for joining us today, and Dina Malik Moreno for what you do. And I would like to, in closing, thank the Stanislaus County Behavioral Health Recovery Services, particularly Ruben Imperial, who has been instrumental in working with the Assyrian community, and all of our volunteers, our chair, Mrs. Janet Atanos right now, and other volunteers and nurses and physicians that have worked with us. Join me on the next Assyrian Wellness Collaborative, and please join me as we watch the testimonial of our refugees. Thank you.
شلامة بدراين الكلو خون جشقان مغبة أنا ريتا من أطرد إيران نأور ميفان جوشيتت ترلب إشتا من برزوغي ميدال سرگيس ويل سوران تيلان جدا أطرا بريخا وبرخة أمريكا وإدان تيلان لخا تيلان مخ refugee people بورخة immigration قد إدان تيلان طيلان لخا رابا خلصت لبا اتفعلا اخ كلو خون خسامة زودا منو خون هر انه احساست قد اخنن وياني لي اخنو خون دا بداين قد بيو خون من قم خدش ازان قماي باين طينان منتا من ميقورتا كارمن مراد وهرت خجانت اتهانوس قديدة برشلون تشيدنون قدا خورزة قد مجد لما بسبارة أصلاً الدعمندي وبطانن منتا من دا تشيتد دانت رزوج عزيزاً وهرت خامندي خينا قد همشا يولي بيوية لمن دي شيتا قامت قد تيتن قدا أطرا همشا تخمنتن خلط علىها خاورخا قديمة قد أمسان يعني برسو بايد دانان منتا من دا أطرا دانان منتا من دا پروگرامت IRC program دانان منتا من دا كوني ديان ستانسلاس كوني قد خادخ سپورت وادانيلا لنا تخمونا اتن سورايبت ين ليفت مود ملت ايبت هيج خا تخمنتا لتلو اني الدا ومن ديت تخموننا قد امسي هايريلو مرا برناشله واخنا نجرك سپورت ودخله واوخ سندان قاته خامن دا بتويتا ايوا يعني وبتويتي برزوغي سرگيز ويل سوره قد ايدا خلنتا من ديدان تتقد ورانجو دا اترا ويلا برخاسان حالا دا برخاسان ايلا و خدو ترابا گورتلا امسانتانيان بركاتت ماريا علاها گودا اترا رابا احساس ودد رابا بغزايد قد بمود ارخاني پريش بيتاينا ألوخ و بياينا بوش يوم قيوم عبد عزد القماي وين خكمت تنيتو أودان ألدانا هايريات قد شقلتين وهج دانا جو خيوتي لمنشيانون سب لبدن هايريات أوديو معنا أجور قد عديخ ديتن أجور قد بغزايون يعني مصاين خشولة أودان قد كلبتت يعني قمتا خرطة قبنا أمتي يعني كود احتياجت لي قدا شولت قد أنا برشتون خيوتي مصاين قاته أودن سببو إلى أطراب ريخ ديان أمريكا هايرياتت قد شقلتين من welfare program بيتلا بفود ستامب بكاش ايد خاكارتي لقد من خلطة جيبا بتويت دي سابورت بتيلا زويزة جاودريت لا يرخا قد أنا سنقوي تلاويلي. On top of that تانق من كل بوش شابرتا پشکش قد قبلالی ادان طیلان گداعات را ای و welcome چکن قد بشینا قبولانی و گداعات را سب چک قدیان رابا تنق بسویرات گرنه تنق رابا طاما اتفاله ادان تازه بیتاید گو خواهات را جیبوخ سپیقتله مخصان ادان برخد رفیوجی بیتاید سنقویت زویزانایید و یوخیله و چک قدی رابا تخر شبیره اتله دتره باینتنین من دید قد رابا چاتونوی تاوی یعنی رگو اطراوات گانن مخصوصا ایران ایلا بیمه من لحاظت بیمه تاما رابا گو چاتونیات فعلا تاما اینها یاریات دا اطرا اخنن هجدانا لخزیه و متاسفانه لنبخشابه ده خزیلون ده یوداتیدزه بیمه لخه خورای قطنی و والا قطو خونتنین ادان تدمرايد ادان حتى خسني قويت خا عمل جراحي وايلا خا سيرجري وايلا هجدانا قد يخلنا مرا خوش قمت ال صندوقه زوزق دريلون خرطه بد بس مخلوق خرطه عملق دو دخله اتليك ما دوست جو ايران قد همشه تخري بسيم كسلي اينا متاسفانه ودو يوم من لنا سبب سنقويت زويزه اتفعلون ولنا ميسيقه عمل ودی پیشی عمل عویوی علاقه دیوما مقدی یخ لذت تخیل طلب لیلا همش قطعه میرنه قمت خوشال صندوق زوزق دریلون خارتا اینا لینه تخمن امارانا کما وزو قولای لقد گره کتمن عمل عبد یودا اترا ان مشکلات اخنان لتلن قمت مارانا بسومونه خارتا گشوقنا آلو خزی کمر زویز زروزد یر خیید ین شیتایید ایتا این لا امصد دا پارتلا ماست قسط به ارخد قسط بندی آنصد عین اتن پارتلا اینا اغدیه نش رفیوجی قددان بیتایق گداعات را اخنان مشکلات لتلن ادیان کل من دی ویل پیش پوریا ایده خلنتت ملکویتا بار خاصانیلا خواهیار تخیتا قد اتلن لخه هر هایورانیلا إلى سكشن 8 بروجرام قد ادمجت مدرب الطانن منتا من كل أنا هايران لخا دعم الكويتا قد ادون برخشد كري أودت بيتوخ مدر إن بدايت لد بلمصت ممتطلع كريد بيتا اتن اب بروجرام مارونا سكشن 8 سو بداين قد خسام الزودة ناشديا جدا تورلاك مرستو سان هوزي لوس أنجلس بينتين خسام الزودة ديان آل دا بروجرام إيوخ قد هايوراني لا بستگیت لالده این کامت قد اد زروزت مرا بیت دوقل اسمو پشانه انا بتایران قد لا پشت قمتارا اتلن رابا هایاریات خینه اینا هل دی دکتت باین امسان باین انا من دیانه متخرانو سبب وظیفه اتلی گرک انا من دیانه متخرانو سب کل انا یو خیوتی شغلتين ومبلغتين دیسکاونتد برقه گاز حتی یعوانیلا زیمون هل ای که تخمونه لباسن سبب اخنا رفیوجی تیغ گداعات را امسخ ازاق دیسکاونتد برقه و گاز شغلخ من كل بوشابرتا قدام كل باتت قديل سورت لو خملة أنا جاني إدونتت تيلي لخبروني تقريبا أنسنتين 12 بهالجبا إدون شوري لام برخشة أن مدرسة شابانة تانيان بوش بيرديتون ممارن بروني جارج متن وعلى خادوك تاك متن وعلى جو بيبي سيتر جو إدوكت ديال سورك خاميلون حتى أزويز داين دا program اتفا مخصوص قد كباريا والا باين تانيان كل خامن دي جدا أطرا بنيونا كل خامن دي جدا أطرا تخمننا باسو قد شوقي refugee people خانة شمرجاني ورخانة بتخيلون قد قدميوما stop لادخ من دي هدفن stop لادخ من دي جولن قد قمت كل اخنن تيغ لخا قبود كل باتن قد امسخ خيوتن ممتخل الخادوكتا و هيرتا قد رابا أن انقيتا وقدي وهم ماشا يتخاري إلى كل هزينة كوليج قد أنا دامخ كل خسام الزودة ديوخون ويخبرخشا كوليج كل هزينة بشتلا بوريتا تاما أنا خب سامت جاني أسادو تجد يبنا حتى خاص سنت أنا لم بتخارا أوين يوفلتا كتابي ووسائل قد لازمي با حتى أيوم توريجو برنامج medical system كل خمندي كل انكتاب الطيمان قد هم تخمونا بكما زوزدن أنا جرك باريان كل أنبيلون بوريقاتي من طرف الملكويتا باين تنين تخار الرابا شابير إتليمن دادون تقد أنا ريفيوجي إنوا وإن أوديو ما أنا أوديو خاطر خديتن جو خيوتي جو دا أطرا مديون دا ملكويتن مخصوصا مارن خاگه خیتا تنیت بدودن کمت شمدن پروگرام أنا يابن همنون عزيزي مدر خدشلا هرت خستان سلاس كامني قد من كل خاگي بقدي وقبتويتي وكل أنا immigration ناشقتينا refugee people مخصوصا من لتديان سوريا من إيران من تهران قتينا لخا بطانا من كلوخون وهذه خجا باين من خيوت تجاني تانيان لخا ادون تتازتي لان اشولي قاما يا شولي لي بالخانة فولنتير جو ايمانويل هوسبيتال لخا جو جيف شوب قد ادون شوري لي تاما هجلي شانا لن بابدايا ورابا عليك خلصاوا كتاين وقتي خجورة اويا انخجي باراي اويان بالخانة ينجو انبار خدوكتا قد لا ينجو باتت ناش خبخة علت لابد خامندي بقران لا يطن وبيشان انخبتا إنا ماريا الله جانو رابا شابيرا ورخانة بتيخي وقاتي من قم دانا بدون كانو ينبا بدايا علىها أخجى صودانتا أرخي بتيخالي بشلي جودي جيف شاب وويلي من ساو سويات دانا أمريكاي قطاما ريتاير دينا بازنشستينا إنا ساعتي كابي بدواخو قاطرا لي بشي بوريه رابا اتخا مجاني تانخ كابي بالخانة إيتا شوريلي بالخانة من داني خبران شوريلي بشقالة منه إيتا جيباتي كابي ومليه من ورق من نوتس كوخا خبر انجليز شامان والو كتفن والي متن والي گوچيبي دازم و بيتا ترجمه يو پلتن والا حتى طريقه تلفظو که یم و به دیکشنری پالو دوقه ناتی که یاو آل conversation قد اتفالو آل تلفون که بی و هم زوم من کستمیره من تانق من مشتری ددوکتا کل که یم و خردیو اخا ویدیو که یعنی که یم و زروزه و چالشان باید حفظ آدم والو خچه مدیانت فقط یا قویر و مدر سنتنس جمله که کتفن بله قیانی و لنخبن بگی باقران و من دامن دا وقت مجری لعها و مجر امسان بوش جلده بارمیان نا مجر تنیه نعها مپل خنگو خیوت دیو معید ایگیف شاب قدی رابا هایران طویله و قدم قامه یگو خیوتی تاما انا زیالی گانی قد امسان اشول آدنه متخت رابو خا با صورة متخ وقت جورتو تاما قم قريالي ومرا بغزاين من تخلخا وخامت خرابو با صورة وقت خنق ديلت جيف شاب يوفلو بيدي وصندوق قويل بيدي شوريلي شولان تاما كل مريوزه خارطة قاتي پیشنهاد بدلون قد سنقوي تدليشانه هايران تدليشانه اتلان اخنانجيو ايمانويل هوسبيتال جو خا كلينيكت پزشکی ایتر انا گانی مدر گوده هدلم بغزای وقت امسان ازم تاما اینا نقب تاما مانیجر تاما اخچه قدی اقارا اتوالا اخچه قدی تشویق کده والا قد اسنت بوشیو والا قاتی لمسیلی تنیان لا و قبلالی و شوریلی بالخانه گیو ده کلینیک و تاما اتفالا کما دکتیر پریش من ملتی پریش خامن دن دکتر قد ادمجت مارن ریشت اقارا مکوبن قاتو و همشه ویل مشوق دی بلکه گنو لاو بدایا اینا همشه خبران و شپیر گوناتینا ایلم یقرا دکتر ادمون قهرمانی قد شوریلی پلخانه من داوا قماران گنو قد خسم زودو ای و هر سورایت گنن بن ملتن که این وها یوره بلیشانه به شولانت ورقه به فرم ملتقاته خمت خرابه گیرش لاتا مغزیلی هر ساعتی مزیودن قوالنتیر اندانات قد خط قدی بقرایتون لخه گودن ساعت زود قد یعویتون بدخ قدی هایر لتون بعد لخه انده اوین خا ایمپلوی مقدن خینه مرون متاسفانه چون خمد رگلت لخ قانونایید مرسخانه اجازه لیه یا و اخنان هایر رو دخلخ سو اهوی لقد همزوم اخوة من تاما مرون قد ان خوشخ بيتايلا من داشولت وعدود خجا بوش ستب جور تا اتلان ميديكال اسيستن إتا جودة دون تتقد أنا عشولا وادون وطاما خيرا شمت على هرجو كوليج دبرخشن و اتفالي خرابة سباي كانسلر تاما قد همشه كومت قايب ببروغرام ببرنامج كيفل والي كلين كلاسيك شكلن والو و همشه قايك تاني و تصميم وقتو قد مو باید قريات كتايرن والا إنا appointment بقليمن و خشلي قاتو مري قد و دو تيتن باين تانين قد رشتهي برشتون و باين اوين ميديكال سيستم رابغ دي لقملا الأقلاء و إيداي داي بلمني و رابا بخادو تا قاتي مرئتلي رابا مقديان تا خبرا قاتخ كل او كتابي بتخلي مرة كومت قاتخ يوفنجو كلاس جو سكاجيلخ كل ان كلاس عاتن كل ان يونيت من تمنالا باسوتت اختي خا زحمت گرگاشت جو خا قيطة إلى short term جانا بضايق لخا ليلة يارختا بيرخي برسد رابع عبيلوخ عبد كلاسوخ باس بعده هيج لما شيان جو خا سمستر أنا اشتصر يونيت خاجش قلالي جو دائمت قيطة من كل برنامج مخيتن و خضارة لمبدا خشتتي كل من دي مبصرتون و جو خيوتي و برزوگی سرگیز راباوی لسندانی همشوی لهایرانی جدن یومان قد بغزای وانا رابا چالوشن همشه کل من دی بتی خشوی قول قاتی قد اخچی اوین بقرايا و امسان اوران جدا پروگرام شاکرون ماريالا قد اسمستر كل كلاسي پس ویدلی و straight وری جدا پروگرامت medical assistant ادان تدوری جدا پروگرام اسمستر خاره تا قد ایوا تنخ فاینال تستنی و تست نهایی دی یعنی و مبورخوا ایوا مصادف به تست سیتیزنشیپ دی لخه جدا اترا ایتر جدا کلاس اخکلو خون بدایتون کل مدیکال ترمینولوژی نه کل وکابولری رابا چاتونی نه پزشکی نه کل انا کیم و بته الفلاش کارد عديدة كعديلة وصندوقي همشان اتلي بيتا ادون لبي ابا خليصة كازنك بدخانة انا خاطراتي كتخرانون انا فلاش كارت كل بتن وقو خاجي بيك متن والون وكوشينت citizenship قد اما داننا كمتن والو قدتشي بيخيتا جو چالشان و جو لانچي و بريك تايم لابلتون و ودر من كلاس كوين و ان citizenship questionnaire كوين و بقراية سب حاضر وين و قتست خيوم رابطي تيلا و تبلا كسلي مرقد لمبخ زايخ بالتد ودر بيايخ خجم مخخ صابه قد فرش اويد ادام بدايخ چالوشت انجلس ليلي شانخ ينا باين خبرك عبيرخ قطو مري دانت من يختدي ليلة عادية سب عادية لا اختي انا تخمونن قد graduate اوين من مدرسة جونيور كوليج citizenship تستي ده الأرخلة هر جو فاسريت خش شبتله إتا إتلي آني ده استادي بعدين خارتا جوش قيلة كارتي شوريلون أينو ملايمية وخبيقنا مرا أجور قديق أنا بغزاين من عادية تبريك مع رقيبان أتن قبولي وات citizenship أخده بشكلت لا فاينال أخده باس بودتلو إتر باين تانين من لحاظ روحية رابيد لخا حتى جو كوليج أنا كانسلر ادان تخيويتك ادان ستوري تخيويتك قد از immigration مخ refugee بتايا وارد قد أطرا بشمايونا أني جشقتي خجورة خيط لالله چالوشنا بكل خا أرخت قد اتن أمسي تارانت قد دويرنا حتى قد تخبتخيلون قد أمست عزت قماي جدو يوم خارج السيرموني قد اتفعلن خا سادو تخيطة قد جرجان قد همش عمن دي بيش اللي تخربي وجدانا لمنش يانا ادان تد بقرايا نيفال ستيج قرطيسان بشقالو خوات كت قبي تابتيا بشوبو ايه جورتو ده بروغرام خدا نغزيلي بار ميكروفون شمي يابولا و شوريلا باسي هم زوم بدون خا من قمت اويا و امن دي قاتي اويا و مرتو قد خا آمادگی حتى عن عبيلي سو زيلي شمي بار ميكروفون يابولا و شوريلا باست خيوتي قد مجرتي تنجدا اترا حقوية و مرقد وديو ستودنت اسكوليتا منني لا وجراduate وإلى مخا أمريكاي دا أطرا من دا بروجرام ومتخرالة تست citizenship دي قد تويان بتشالوشو بقرايا منها من medical terminology board خرطة يخوتا مرة وديو إلى رابع خادو تقاتي قد student إيفا اسكولاي دي اتمجد بطانا من تامنو همش بتخرنا خدانا جده خاره تا خلازش میلی اخچیقاتی مرا قد بطلابخ منو قد تیادی آل ستیج و معرفی وعدی و قکوله اند تیبه و تاما اخچی خلازه باین تنیان ای دقیقه خمومنتی و قد هج دانا لمسان منشیانه بالو ویدویقه و من خدوتی بخین و خلالت فریق و اقلی قد قهمن و ازن وال ستیج خدانا غسیلی خوریاتی مگیبه مارنا قدری تقو بسپارنا كل قدي أخينا باين تانيان the best moment يخيوت دي أو يوم بقاد سقلي تاما وشوري لي خدشة باسدن خيويات جاني وأمثال جاني رفيوجي ناشقتيق وبتهيريات دام الكويتا أوديو ما سامزودن أخنا graduate فيخ باين مدرتنا منتا من كل خون قد برنامه دوتون بغزايو ودخدين مارا بشتا وطلبتها مني قد أنا من ديانة تنينون باين تنين خبران الرابط لي قتانيتا إن ألم بيادانو خو من دا بوزودة شكلنا يخوتا ما خيخيتا باين طينون منتا هر دخدين مارا من داني بريش بروغرامت قد اتلان لخا يخوتا ما اختي باين متخران لا من شخشك رخل علىها يوم قيوم لا يتفخ قولخ مكريخ من دان قولياتن يشقخ براي من اي كتيخ يمو چاتونيات بيخ تاما برشته و من دادوكتت اخنن ايوخ عادية لخه هج ناشقات خلال مارعاتن سورايت نخرايوت ملتوخ مويلة دينوخ مويلة نجادوخ مويلة لخت خمديانلت ان بايت منتت بدمنتت إنا ان دوز أرخ عزتلا وجودن نبطل مجر لازد على همنو خيله وملكوتا برخاصو خيلا وخامد دي خينا قد باين متخرن لخا كل ان الساب سوياتن لخا ان أبيتون خزيه على خيه برخيل قامو سبب هايريات دا ملكوتلا من لحاظ medical supplies من لحاظ دکتری درمانان کل من دی قطع مهیال لخه انا خب سامد گانی امسان من دی تنین هم بابی هم خمیانی تور من تخقیرش مطالع اتلی منامنی اواهی منامنانینا اینا بداین ان ابی و گو ایران بلکی سلامتوی تدقت عادیه اتلون گدا اترا لوی والو تاما مدر بدار لقا هایاریات دا حکمه سو کیو خهایارت بیایخ کل من دی آماده ایله و خیید برناش گدا اترا ماریو خینا امن دی انا مارون و صدوت دا یابن قطو پس قلیاتن ما بسراخلون و شکرخل ماریا علا مدر بطانن منتا من کلو خون خمدی خیتا قد بایانتنان منتا ایلا من برزوگی سرگیس قد همشه تشویق ویدیله هجدانا لیلی میره لا و بوش همشه پوشیو ویله از انقامای ققرتی و اوین منتینته رابغ دیتن اودیو ابیتون رابغ بسیمه قد کل مندی قدیده شورکتون گده برنامه خود تنان منتن من کلو خون بسیمه
Hello, my name is Rihanna Peets. I work at the International Rescue Committee here in Turlock. I am the Safety and Wellness Manager for our Health and Wellness Programming. And I've been at the IRC since 2016, where I first started as a resettlement caseworker. So my background is in refugee resettlement here in Turlock. I've been very lucky to work with a variety of clients through this work, including a lot of new arrivals from Afghanistan. And our office, we serve people that come with refugee status, with other statuses such as special immigrant visa, CAM AOR, and now a lot of Afghan parolee who have humanitarian parolee status. So we serve a great amount of Afghan community members, both older clients who've been here for maybe 4 or 5 years, as well as families that just arrived from overseas, from Kabul or other countries. We currently have a program, it's called Afghan Path towards Wellness, and we've been funded from Stanislaus County's BHRS department since March of 2019. So we're over 2 years now in our programming, almost 3. And through that, I've been able to work with 2 community health promoters who are both of the Afghan community, who know the languages, know the cultures, and are able to really connect with our clients who are Afghan women. So our program, Aptw, has an 8-week curriculum that's focused on mental health and what it means to be well in this new community. What is culture shock? How do you create goals for yourself to have a better health or more connections, more supports. We also talk a lot about the connection between someone's mind and what they're feeling and how that shows up in their body and what the health is of their body. And so our 2 community health promoters will go through each of those lessons with our clients. Usually our groups are about 6 to 10 women. And at the end, almost all of our clients say that they've really enjoyed the program and that they've created some new community through it, which is our main goal. Because we know that having supports, especially for new arrivals, is so important to a new community's well-being, both as a whole and individually. And that's really something we strive to focus on. It's part of our mission with APTW, and the larger mission of our office at IRC Turlock is to help new families and individuals who don't yet have children connect, find a way to integrate into the community, find supports, and be self-sufficient. So that's our main programming as of right now for health and wellness, but we're very excited that we've received some new funding this past couple of months. And in this new year, we're going to be hiring for a lot more positions, including some caseworkers who specifically will help families connect to physical and mental health supports. So we're hiring, actually. So any of you out there who speak Dari and Pashto and even Farsi, if you're interested in serving the Afghan community, we are definitely hiring and looking for those people who are really focused on creating a community of wellness here in Turlock. Our other missions at our office include helping individuals who've arrived to get immigration relief. So we have an immigration department, and we have some attorneys on staff, as well as some legal caseworkers who are filling out those applications for permanent residency status, family reunification, as well as citizenship. So we really try to be a source for the new arrival community from the day they get here to 4 years, 9 months later when they can apply for citizenship, of course, depending on the status, the immigration status that the person came with. We also have another component of our APTW program, in addition to the 8-week classes that I mentioned, where we give those mental health curriculum to the ladies. We also have an open group, and that is a very casual drop-in class, more of a conversation or a support group setting where the women can meet and talk about mental health topics or just how their week has been. It's another option for them to gather together. Because of COVID, of course, it's been virtual, but we've still found great participation, and even amongst our older or more former clients who are no longer in our core curriculum. We have also new arrivals who join us. So that's been a really long-standing success of ours throughout the 2.5 years that we've been running our program. It's just holding that extra space during the week for our women to meet and create community. And we also have some extra support on our team. In addition to our 2 community health promoters, we have an MSW intern from CSU Stanislaus, who's been helping us to do a lot of resource navigation for the women in our programming. So if they mentioned during class or during open group that they were struggling with connecting to a doctor or a dentist, or they needed support with applying for education, for low-income internet, depending on their financial situation. Our MSW student is there to support. So we're really trying to have a holistic approach to our health and wellness programming for this population. And another goal we have within our safety and wellness department is to continue to grow. Like I mentioned earlier, we have those open positions. We're hiring for more caseworkers, community health workers, community health promoters to support these communities, but that also extends to our other populations that we serve. We have a lot of clients that arrive from Iran, Iraq, Syria, Ukraine, and Central America. And so those communities also need these types of supports and resources to focus on helping them create a community for themselves here in the United States, and specifically in Stanislaus County.
السلام علیکم. وقتی هم میگی بخیر، من فرشته سادات هستم از تورلاک کالیفرنیا و برای 4 سال میشم به امریکا آمدم از طرف دفتری IRC و فعلا خودم کارمندی IRC هستم. بریم یک طرف گذشته های قصه خود ما با پاکستان تولدم شده به شهر کراچی و مادر پدرم خودشون از مزار شریف افغانستان تعلق دارن و تقریبا خیلی سالایی با پاکستان زندگی کردم و من خودم به اونجا تولدم شد، کلان شدم، درس و مکتب میخواندم. خیلی زندگی آرام و پرذوق و همگی چیزا خیلی خوشحال بود. همراه همسنفی نفرایی که گرد بر بودیم همیشه احساس میکردم و به امو جایی که کلان شدم، به امو جایی که تولدم شده بود، به امو کشور و سرزمین که هستم، از امو جایی که هستم تعلق داریم. و وقتایی بود که سالای دولتی ها خلاص خیلی خرابی های آمد بین دولت و چیزا، مشکلاتی آمد و پیش روی آمد که ماها با نظر پاکستانی افغانی گفته می شدیم و مورد یک نظری فهمیده شد که ماها در اونجا مهاجر بودیم. و اینقدر سالایی که ما با اونجا در درس مکتب کی بودیم هیچ وقت به این چیز توجه نشد که ماها افغانی هستیم، پاکستانی نیستیم. و در همین مدت هایی که مشکلات دولتی پیش آمد و به خاطر اسنادا و مسائل دیگر افغانی را خیلی اونجا شکنجه داده شد و ما مجبور شدیم که مهاجرت کنیم بریم طرف امریکا. و در این مدتی که ما کیس انداختیم از طرف UNHCR در طرفای کراچی دفتر UNHCR بودن و تقریبا 4 سال ما مدت گرفت که ما بخیر بریم طرف کالیفرنیا امریکا. و مدتایی که ما اول آمدیم جریان کیس هم خیلی سختی بود. 4 سال که ما منتظر ازی بودیم بخیر چی وقت چه خبری بیاین و روزای شبا خیلی با تشویش و پرزاق و خیلی چیزایی داشتیم که بخیر چی وقت یک خبری خوش بیاین یا چی مستقبل از ما چی رقم معلوم شدن. و الحمدلله یک روزی بودن که ما پرواز داشتیم و آمدیم که طرفی لس آنجلس کالیفرنیا و بعد از این آمدیم تحویل IRC شدن که کیسایمان. وقتی که اول آمدیم به امریکا فکر می‌کنم تا 7 روز فامیل ما از خوشی از پرسکونی خواب نداشتیم، شب و روز بیدار بودیم، خیلی خوشحال احساس می‌کردیم، فکر کنیم در بهشت آمدیم. و همین مدت‌های پیش رفت که پیش آمدیم به سختی‌های زندگی شهر امریکا که مثلا تلاش درس و تلاش کار، وظیفه و مشکلات دیگر. چون خودم به یک کشوری مکلان شده بودیم، به یک شهری که زبان انگلیسی رو اونجا صحبت نکردیم ولی درسش خوانده بودیم، برای ما قدر تشویشناک نبود که ما زبان انگلیسی رو صحبت کنیم. ولی بازم یک مدتی گرفت که بین 8 ماه و 1 سال آهسته آهسته می شروع کردیم که به همکارا یا همسایه ها خود به انگلیش صحبت کنیم. و همین مدتی بود که ما از طرف دفتر IRC که یک وقتی اینا کیسورکرم بود، فعلا اینا همگیش همکار ما هستن، یک برنامه پیشنهاد شد که در مورد صحت سلامتی خانم های افغان خیلی فوکس دارن و خیلی خانم های افغان که در تورلاک مودستو زندگی میکنن همگیش ما رو میشناسن و برای از ما یک مثل یک معلم ما احترام دادن و خیلی وقت خوش گذاشتن همراه از من و ما رو تقریبا همی برنامه که انجام دادیم تقریبا یک 2.5-3 سال میشن همراه دفتر IRC و خانم های افغان به تورلاک مودستو. و تقریبا خیلی خانم هایی بودن به گروه ما نظریات داشتن، ماشاءالله صاحب اولی شدن و صاحب خانه گرفتن، موتر گرفتن و تا حالی همراه از ما که تماس میگیرن به ملاحظه های گذشته خمورن که مثلا خانم فرشته همراه از ما خیلی یک معلم خوب بود یا یک برنامه خوب از طرف دفتر IRC داشتیم. به خاطر که ماها افغانیا یا منافرایی که مثلا از طرفای کشورهای دیگر که مییم به امریکا احساس منیم که به نظری در مورد صحت روح روان که صحبت منیم خیلی نظریات منفی یا احساس منیم که شاید گفتار یعنی صحت روان که هستن در مورد روانی گفتار میشن. خب برنامه خیلی مفید بود برای خانم های افغان که از اول روزای احساس میکرد مثلا کس به امریکا نیستن به اونا گوش بدن به مشکلات از اونان و چون همچین خود من همچین مشکلات مهاجرت دیدم به کشور پاکستان و از اینجا آمدیم به امریکا و اینجا تا یک مدتی تا وقتی که سر کار شدم تا وقتی ما خیلی مشکلاتی مثلا از نظر روان خیلی آسیب زده احساس میکردم خودم و وقتی که سر این برنامه کار کردم همراه خانم ها هر چقدر که ما اونا رو درس دادیم در مورد کالچر شوک یعنی شوک های فرهنگی، در مورد تجربه مهاجرت، در مورد ارتباط مغز بدن، در مورد گولز اند دریمز که مثلا چرا آدم زندگی خور میتونن به زندگی امریکا استوار بتونن، ما خودم خیلی همزین چیزا یاد گرفتم و احساس منم که هر خانم افغان یا هر خانومی که به امریکا مهاجر میاین یا اسایبی من هر رقمی که به اینجا مهاجرت کردیم میایم ما همگی نیاز به یک دوست داریم، نیاز به یک شناندگان داریم، یک نفر که همراه ما خیلی همدرد بشه تا که ما بتونیم با یکدیگر کمک شویم، با یکدیگر یک جامعه صحت و سلامتی، یک جامعه پیشرفت، یک جامعه سپورت داشته باشیم برای یکدیگر. و در همین چیزا که ما همراه خیلی خانم هایی که همراه از ما 2 سال 2.5 سال به برنامه ما هستن به اونا شناسایی خیلی خوب داریم، خورخاندهای خیلی خوب داریم و آنها خیلی چیزایی از برنامه یاد گرفتن. از نظر روح و روان به خودون فوکس دارن، میخواین که زندگی خوش و آرام داشته باشد و خودم به دمی جریان که اونا رو درس میدادیم یاد گرفتیم که واقعا وقتی که یک خانم یا یک دختر یا یک زنی که از نظر روح و روان مثلا خیلی روحیه خوب داشته باشه، برای خود خیلی مثلا نگهداری خوب داشته باشد، میتونن برای یک جامعه خوب مثال خوب باشد، میتونن به جامعه خوب رسایی خوب بتونن کمک بتونن و برای کامیونیتی خود سپورت بتونن. و من نظریه ما خیلی شکرگزار هستم از طرف دفتر IRC که اینها مرا موقع داد که ما بتونم یک کارمند جور شدم از طرف یک کلاینت بودم که ما از طرف از اینا آمدم و خیلی احساس خوشحالی رو منم که اینا مرا یک موقعی دادن یا خداوند که ما بتونم به افغانی خود کمک کنم، برای دخترای افغانی یا برای خانم‌های افغانی بتونم به اونا کمک شوم و بتونم که تشکری برای دفتر IRC و استنسلس کانتی که برنامه ها را برای از ما پیشنهاد داد و همچنین انشالله توقع دارم که کامیابی و پیشرفت خانم‌های افغان امی رقم پیش بره و شما هم همچنین پیش نظر داشته باشید که دفتر IRC اگر یگان وقتی همکار دیگر در کار داشتم حتما همراه شما شریک ساختم یا همراه خانم ها که مثلا بتونن اپلای کنن برای از ما همکار باشد، برای همکارای از ما همکار باشد و در افغانیای خود کمک بتونن. دیگه این نظری از من این رقم چیزی بودن و در مورد پوزیشن من یک چیز خیلی خوش آیین میتونم بگم در آخر که وقتی ما 7 ساله بودم خیلی درسای خوب میخواندم ماشاءالله با پاکستان و همیشه خود به امیر رقم به یک روز در دل مامات گفتم ما انشالله کالان کشیدم رو به امریکا درس میخوانم یک دکتر خیلی خوب جور میشم و امی تا وقتی که خواب و خیالم پوره شد یعنی امی مقاصد زندگی که رسیدم که بیام به امریکا تا این وقتی نشد که یک درس دکتری بخونم ولی امی قدر شد که ما بتوانم به جامعه خود یک چیزی کنم، به فامیل خود افتخار باشم، بر مردم خود افتخار باشم و خیلی احساسی تکمیلی و احساسی پروقار مونم. تشکر از همگی شما، روز خوش.